Hey, what's going on, everybody? RotoGrinders, Underdog best ball fans. Welcome to Underdog Fantasy Draft Live. That's what we are doing today. I'm Dan Bach. We got Eric Beinfor with us here today, and we are going to be drafting, hopefully, against you. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the draft has already started. Now, you got to follow us on social media. We told you that we were going to start at noon, so you should have known that and jumped in the Best Ball Mania with us. And we're going to draft this live on screen, talk about our picks, have some fun here today. And I promised whoever would be in the 6 hole would get one of these awesome RotoGrinders 10 years of DFS t-shirts. So it looks like Mr. Tomato, whoever you are, send me a DM. We'll hook you up with a t-shirt. Eric, welcome, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just took Saquon Barkley, so we're off to a good start.
You got 1.2, and that's a pretty easy spot there because
super easy.
Yeah, it's about the easiest spot that you can get because I think it's pretty clear it's 1 or 2. I'm actually up in 4 picks. I'm picking at 1.9. Not my favorite spot here, but if you haven't gotten in on the Underdog Best Ball Fantasy, make sure you download that app. You can also play on the desktop. This is $25. You're talking about $1 million prize pool, $200K to first place. And hey, I don't know about you, Eric. I haven't done this yet this season, but nothing better to do to kind of go on a walk, go on the elliptical, spend 40 minutes drafting a team and getting a little bit of workout. So here I am. I'm on the clock here at 1.9. And oh man, this is a terrible spot. And I'm coming up on it. Oh man. I don't even like Joe Mixon, and I took Joe Mixon. This is not a good start to the draft, Eric, when you're starting taking players that you don't like.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on him?
So I am kind of bullish on Mixon in general, but I never end up taking him because if I don't get one of the top 3 picks, I'm getting a little bit torn on maybe 4 or 5 spot, but if I get 6 through the end of the first, I'm always taking a wide receiver. So I haven't gotten any of Mixon and like Miles Sanders and Drake and those guys. I'm just not getting them because I'm taking wide receivers.
Yeah, yesterday I did this draft and I went, and it's hard to do this year, but I said to myself, I was picking like 1.9, and I said, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna take Tyreek, then I'm gonna get Kelsey on the way back, and then I'm gonna cross my fingers that Mahomes falls to me and I can get the Chiefs stack. That was pretty doable last year. Yeah. It was not even close. I was like 6-7 picks away from getting Mahomes. So I know we love stacking in this format, but that one's really been hard to get on Underdog, I think.
It's been really hard for me. I've almost given up trying. Yeah. Like I stopped taking Tyreek now because I can't ever get it. Somebody was always taking Mahomes in like the early 3rd or something. So I just haven't been able to do it. So I end up taking like more Julio, Julio, Devontae, something like that in that spot over Tyreek now. So, but I've tried more times than I care to admit. And I think I did it once.
Yeah, and it's it's not like it's a horrible thing to necessarily have those 2 Chiefs, but I know you and I both are on team stack it up the best you can, and when you have your top 2 picks and you don't have any stacking options with them, it's kind of goes against your philosophy. But you kind of just have to like just take a run at it and see if it falls your way, because I just don't think there's going to be a lot of those teams in this draft. Again, Underdog Fantasy. The makers of Draft are kind of behind this. Of course, that app went by the wayside, and we're playing the Best Ball Mania tournament. If 25 is too much, they just added the bubble. It's a $5 version of this as well. Same kind of format where you have playoffs, and the one difference is the top 2 teams get through in each league, as opposed to last year where it was just the top team. Eric, you are on the clock now with your second pick. All right, let's see what you do here.
Tough spot. I like a lot of these wide receivers, like at the end of the 2nd round. But I think the guy I'm most bullish on is Juju.
That is a way That's way above ADP right there. Yeah, I mean,
so go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm super bullish on the Steelers offense, and I'm super out on some of these other stud wide receivers. So I'm trying to get as much juju as I can. Hopefully it works out as well last year, but this is kind of what I did with Chris Godwin last year. That was my guy. I thought he was going to have a monster season, and so I just wanted to get as much exposure as I can. And if he failed, I was just going to lose. But I'm okay. That's kind of how I approach these drafts. I'm trying to max it out, and I'm trying to get as much exposure to the players that I am really high on as I can.
All right. Well, I'm curious to see who you take here before I kind of bust your chops here a little bit. On your philosophy, and not the philosophy as much as the execution. Yeah. So you went with Allen Robinson. Okay. So, I won't get on you too much because I believe Robinson, because here's the thing that, like it or not, people are a slave to this order here. Like, I'm guilty of it sometimes too, especially when I panic pick and it's just like, okay, I'll pick the top guy. But was Robinson lower than Juju on this list?
I have Juju list? Like once.
Not your list, on the list. Because that was the point I was trying to make, is I felt like Juju, there was zero chance Juju was going to be selected in your third round spot.
Yeah.
Because you were picking like 4 later.
So I have seen, and maybe you've seen a little bit differently. So Juju is 2 picks ahead on ADP of A-Rob, and I have started to see Juju like fly up. I used to be able to get Juju, late 3rd, maybe even he'd slide into the 4th, and now he's flying out at early 3rd. So I do see what you're saying, since I had an early 3rd round pick, but I am like, just take my guys kind of guy. I like all those wide receivers kind of after Juju are pretty similar to me. Thielen and DJ Moore and those guys are all pretty similar, but I have Juju above them. So I'm just like I said, I'm just taking them and trying to get as much as I can.
Well, I'm on the clock here, and lo and behold, Lamar Jackson is still sitting on the board, and there's a lot of talk in the fantasy community whether or not it's where do you take this guy? I mean, if he put the season together that he had last year, you're probably okay taking him in the 3rd round, not especially late 3rd round. And I'm up against it. My phone is buzzing. And as I talked about before, when I panic pick, I just usually take the top guy, and that was Lamar Jackson. So that's the route that I'm going with on this. And it's funny because I build my teams kind of accordingly, like how these first couple of rounds go, because I think you and I have talked about this before. You're probably not winning or losing in your portfolio from these first 3 picks you make. I think it probably has more to do with what you do in the later rounds to complement them.
Definitely. And I think it's more about kind of not even necessarily like who you pick later, but how you construct your team later. All these guys are studs, right? Like the first 4 rounds. Like I prefer Juju or whatever, but if you preferred TJ Moore, like that's fine. I don't think that really matters that much. With Peter Overzet yesterday, and that was more so what we spent time talking about, is keeping that, like he always uses the word optionality, but keeping that flexibility as you build your team, as opposed to really focusing on ADP or that kind of stuff that I think a lot of people overanalyze.
Question in chat. Somebody says, for the tournament best ball, realistically, can a group of 12 people just team up and let one person get all the good players? Historically, they have safeguards on this where they basically are comparing the ADPs of players, and if things get out of whack, they'll just void the tournament. Now, last year on draft, and this is something I've been meaning to kind of tweet about, last year on draft, there were some wonky drafts. There was a lot of wonky drafts. What I mean by that is you'd have one guy end up drafting like 7 quarterbacks or 7 tight ends in like 1 QB, like just really nonsensical builds. And I always wanted to be in these drafts because I always felt like it's an advantage because this one less guy I completely have to worry about. But it also made me wonder, like, how many of these are happening and why is this happening? We never really got a firm answer on that. But I will say, and I want to hear your experiences, in 20 some odd drafts that I've done here, I've yet to see that trend manifest at all so far.
I haven't seen it once. I did a draft this morning that was like my 30th or 30, somewhere in the 30s. I haven't seen one yet. And I feel like I saw it a little more often than I would have liked last year.
Yeah,
me too. I just remember, you and I and other people engaging in like threads on Twitter where we were definitely talking about it every other week or something. So I haven't seen it yet. So that's a positive sign.
Yeah, no joke. Divine Ozigbo was like the first overall pick on one of my drafts that I did last year. And you can't fat finger Divine Ozigbo. Like, you just can't do it. So clearly something was a bit haywire there. So the good thing is I haven't really seen that take place. And the thing to remember, too, is winning your division or getting into the playoffs is great. It's going to help kind of your ROI here. But ultimately, how you perform when you get to the playoffs is how you make money in this. And that's what we're trying to kind of concentrate on. All right, what'd you go with your next pick?
So I kind of hated what just happened. But when I got to, what is that, 4.11? Yeah, 4.11, both the Seahawks wide receivers were there. And that's a stack I'm really interested in trying to get on. Actually, we were talking about the Chiefs stuff. I tried to do, maybe last week, and I posted it on Twitter. I tried to do a Chiefs stack because I took Tyreek and Kelsey, and I got sniped for Mahomes. And then the Seahawks wide receivers were there. So I just took Lockett and Metcalf back to back. And then I was able to get Russ a little bit later. And I'm really high on that stack because it's just so concentrated between Russ and those guys. So I tried to get that just now. But of course I wasn't able to get DK Metcalf. So I only got Lockett. And then I came back with Steph Diggs, who I'm honestly so like he's fine. He's a good player. Yeah, I'm really so on it, but I'm just kind of bullish on the Bills. I like Josh Allen. So it's just kind of keeping my options open for how I want to set up my team. Like I can stack the Bills or I can stack the Seahawks. I can stack, I can still stack everybody that I've drafted.
All right. I don't even know what I'm doing because drafting and talking is a mess. And and yeah, I just drafted Mark Ingram, which is interesting because I also drafted Lamar Jackson. So kind of eating up that running equity. But the sad thing is J.K. Dobbins could easily be the guy who scores like the most touchdowns there. And do I really want to take 3 of these Baltimore guys? Right. We'll see if I want to go there. It's not an impossibility. Again, I'm trying to go outside the box here. And it didn't help that my boy Head Chopper, Chop Daddy, by the way, in the old YouTube chat. Interesting name there, Chopper. Ended up taking Marquise Brown, which doesn't really bother me all that much. All right, I'm back on the clock here. And the question is, I got Jackson, Mixon, Ingram, Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin. Andrews is already out. I really don't like how early he's going. I'm going to do it. I mean, screw it. I'm just taking J.K. Dobbins. So any running, if Gus Edwards is the top dog there for the Ravens, this team is 100% a loser. But I actually cover a lot of bases here. And the conclusion I'm coming to here on doing these drafts, Eric, is running back gets pretty ugly. I think it gets pretty ugly pretty quick. Like, I feel like there's definitely wide receivers you can get in rounds 14 through 18 that can actually produce for you and could even be like a top 30 wide receiver, like overall, just a guy under the radar, rookie, somebody like that. There's the running backs when you get to that level are just trash. I mean, maybe you'll get a pop of a week from a guy like Lynn Bowden or something, but for the most part, there's nobody at that range that I feel has any chance to kind of be an every week contributor.
I totally agree. So I think that's where like really approaching it hyper fragile is really important in these, especially in this tournament. In a regular 12-team league, maybe not as much, but in these tournaments, I want to like hammer a few running backs early and then move away.
Yep.
Or I want to, zero RB it, which like I had a top 3 pick here, so I'm going to take Saquon, and then I'm not really going to take running backs for a while, and then just hammer all the like backups essentially from rounds 8 to 13, because everybody else will be drafting their wide receivers and quarterbacks and stuff there. And I'm drafting, Tony Pollard and Latavius Murray and those kind of guys.
Yeah, and especially now, like I think there's a case to be made with a top guy like Saquon or Zeke or Elliott, where you grab a second one instead of maybe going like 4 wide, like in one of those other wide receiver spots. Maybe you take a running back, and then you can legitimately kind of step back. I don't hate that move. The problem is like where you're at now is, and he just took Josh Allen there. Wow, okay, there we go. So you got. That was what I was going to say before. Is when you took Diggs, is I knew there was a Josh Allen pick coming your way, because that's an ultimate parent.
It's last year, maybe it won't work out, but last year, Josh Allen to John Brown and Cole Beasley really was just a moneymaker for super cheap. This is a little bit more expensive, but I think it has even more upside. And I don't actually really think people are stacking that very much. Like it's not a super sexy, even though Josh Allen is a really great fantasy asset and Diggs is awesome. It's not something that people view like as sexy as a stack. So that's another one that I'm trying to get on, even though like we talked about, I'm not like in love with Diggs in the 5th round, but I just think it's a really, really high upside stack that people aren't targeting.
It's a contrarian one. I mean, we talk about that, and it's funny because I don't know if anybody, I certainly haven't jumped into all the data from last year's draft. I mean, the fact that the app isn't available sucks, because you can go back and look at all that stuff.
Right.
But the one prevailing theme was, what was the team that you kind of needed to have last year that ended up winning all the money? Miami Dolphins, Devontae Parker went freaking crazy. And if you had Fitzpatrick and Devontae Parker, you were in the driver's seat. All right, I'm up at let's see, 7th round. I'm probably looking wide receiver here. Tight end's not bad. All right, I can take Mecole. Maybe a little bit early for him, but I do think there's a chance he has a breakout season this year. Injury aside or suspensions, whatever happens. But that was a guy last year who I feel like should have had like 3 or 4 more touchdowns than he had, either on passes that were just that they just missed him on, that he had beaten the defender by like 5 steps, or in ones that he dropped that he beat the defender by 5 steps. So again, was he second year wide receiver here? Like this is DJ Chark all over again. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, that's that DJ Chark with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. That would be pretty good.
That is true. All right, we'll get some more. We'll take a look at some of these other teams here in a moment. If you got any questions in the YouTube chat, send them our way. Happy to talk a little bit about those. Again, Underdog Fantasy, available iOS, Android, and on the desktop. Going to be doing these all summer long. It's just a ton of fun. Okay, back on the clock here. Slayton is an absolute no. Ruggs is an absolute no. I could take John Brown to totally screw your stack, but I won't do that to you, Eric. Tight end. I take a guy who I really like this year. It's a little bit early. Might have been able to wait and get him around later, but Hayden Hurst, he wasn't bad last year, in a role with Mark Andrews. Now he goes to Atlanta, who we saw Austin Hooper have a breakout season last year. And you've got the great receivers on the outside, so it's not like you can just throw another defender there on Hurst. I mean, it feels like this is a guy who could bust out and be like a top 5 tight end that I would say people didn't see coming, but people maybe not are accounting for as much as they should. So a little bit of risk, but I'll take.
I totally agree. He's one guy I found myself getting a little bit more back. So it's been a little while, but Jamino and I did the very initial like best ball rankings for the site. And I think Hayden Hurst was the biggest gap from where we had him ranked and ADP. You know, like I don't think he was top 5 tight end, but he was certainly in the top 10 and you know, hovering closer to the top 5. And he was going as like 15th tight end or something at the time. He's come up a little bit. But I don't really get that if Austin Hooper, he's not any better than Hayden Hurst. I don't really get why Hurst is going so late.
Yeah. All right, you're on the clock. Head Chopper just went and took Deshaun Jackson. That's an early pick on Deshaun. Deshaun Jackson and Marquise Brown. Somebody's playing the best ball game for sure. His name's Head Chopper. Those big splash weeks. Evan Ingram. I thought about him. I like him. The health concern is just like such. I mean, you can't really account for it when you're doing these best balls, and you know that's why you draft depth or whatnot. But if he stays healthy, could have an absolute monster year. But it's just been such a big issue for him.
It's definitely one thing I'm bad about it. Like I don't know how to account for injuries. Like you know, I've read stuff like other people have, you know, about recurring injuries and all different stuff, and I just mostly ignore it. So now I end up with probably more Evan Ingram, and then he's going to get hurt again, and I'm going to be screwed. But
how are you? Okay, so I'm looking at your team here. You have got 2 quarterbacks. So you're obviously not going to draft that position, I think, anytime soon. Wide receivers, you're sitting on 5. You've got Barkley at running back, and then Evan Ingram now. Kind of in a little giant stack there too. I didn't even think about that when you took Ingram, that you already had Barkley. Are you ready to start diving into running back, or are you going to wait?
Yeah, so this is about where I almost always will start really hammering running backs, just like hammer all these guys, all these you know quote unquote backups, starting, and then I guess they're not technically all backups, like Carry-On and Breida and are not backups. But like all that from Carry-On on, and I was taking Darius Geis, so I have a bunch of dead teams. Carry-On, Breida, Latavius, etc. This is why I like to have a top 3 pick, because then I can get that one running back, and now I just got to hit on one of these guys. You know, if Kamara gets hurt, or if Dalvin gets hurt, or whatever, I just got to hit once, and then I feel pretty good about my team.
All right. I'm coming up here picking next. I kind of want a running back, but there's not too much there. I don't need it. I basically have a whole backfield set up there in Baltimore, and then I've got a mix in. So I'll probably hold off there and grab a wide receiver here. This is a tough little spot. Again, I don't hate the pick. I mean, Mike Williams, it's interesting because if you look at him, his touchdowns just regressed so dramatically last year from 10 until all the way down to 2. But the answer's somewhere in the middle, because he still had 1,000 yards receiving. He still was a little shy of 100 targets. He's still going to be a guy that they look to in the end zone. Now, obviously, Phillip Rivers isn't chucking. We don't know how that's going to look. Did you watch Hard Knocks last night by any chance?
I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to watch it later today.
Okay. I mean, Justin Herbert throws a nice ball. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, a little bit early to be speculating that he throws a nice ball, but I'm fine at that point in time. He's, you know, my wide receiver 4, and now I'm back on the clock again. Let's see what we got here. Are you Okay, I'm going to go Latavius here. He's the safest of the bunch. Are you on Breida over Howard?
Yes.
You are? Okay.
Yeah. I'm ready.
Like strong or like?
Strong, yeah.
Why?
Breida's a lot better at football.
Okay. That's always a good answer.
I mean, I'm fully ready to get burned for like the 10th consecutive season of a coach that loves Jordan Howard and keeps, I mean, every year I take whoever is in the backfield with him and it doesn't work. But I also feel like that team can't be the team that just grinds Jordan Howard. You know, they got better and they got better on defense, but on the Eagles and teams like that, they were so good that you could kind of just grind Jordan Howard for most of the game. But I don't think that the Dolphins can do that, and he's not going to catch a bunch of passes. So I'm willing to bet on a little bit of Breida upside.
Well, he is available for you right now if you want to go that route.
And I do think
kind of worked out nice. And so there you go. You got your second quarterback or your second running back, and we'll take a look at Eric's team right here. Double stack of Buffalo, Russell Wilson with Tyler Lockett. Will you look to a Seattle tight end later to go as your third wheel there?
So that's what I like about a stack like that is I certainly don't love who is it, Olsen? That is Olsen in Seattle. I mean, I'm certainly not excited about him, but I have Evan Ingram, and then just tossing on, like, everybody is just drafting off ADP at the end, and I'm drafting off of, okay, how can I just complete a stack with an extra guy? Because the week that Olsen randomly catches 2 touchdowns, it's going to be way more important for me to have him when I have Russ and Lockett.
All right. Let's see what we got here. I'm coming up. And man, this is getting interesting. What do I want to do here? Here's my squad. Probably going to go another wide receiver here. And all right. Taking some Breshad Perriman. He's definitely a guy that maybe a little early on that, but there might be a method to that madness if things play out like I would hope. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, none of these guys right here are sure things at this point in time. He looks great at the end of last season. Sam Darnold, any good? That's probably going to be, depending on it. But I mean, he kind of fills that role that Robbie Anderson had last year. Crowder's not going to change much. Mims is going to come in with nothing in the preseason, so I'm okay with that
pick. I think the Jets are a pretty interesting cheap stack. Got Frozen Dan. All right, let's see if we can still see his app. That's good. He can Dan can just be the man behind the curtain here for us. So I am up in 4 picks. Tomato, the free swag winner, is on the clock.
All right. I'm sorry about that, fellas. I'm back.
Quite all right.
So I don't know. You probably didn't see that. My question to you was it Chase Edmonds or Damian Harris? I took Chase Edmonds. Would you concur?
Yeah, definitely prefer Chase Edmonds. I mean, we've seen what Chase Edmonds can do if he gets a chance to play, if Drake gets hurt or something. I love Chase Edmonds. And
just a word of wisdom to future video podcasters, whatever the hell you want to call what we're doing here right now. When you plug in your internet, turn off your Wi-Fi. Because if you don't, you will still be on the Wi-Fi. And if it sucks like mine, you will drop mid-show and look like a complete donkey. So, this is a learning situation for all the future potential broadcasters out there. We're joined again by Eric Beinfor. I'm Dan Bach. This is Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Draft Live. We're going to be doing these twice a week. We'll get another one coming up, I think, tomorrow with Stevie and Crane. So don't miss out on that. These Best Ball Manias. It's a ton of fun. It's a great thing to do to kind of distract you, move some time, and maybe win some money. Because I'll tell you this, the other thing that I really loved about this was, you deposit your money, you're doing these drafts, and then when it's all over, you get a huge payout at the end of the year, hopefully. Even if you don't win the whole thing, you're getting something dropped in your account all at one big chunk. So that's kind of nice. Okay, you're back on the clock, and you rolled with Preston Williams. I like that. The problem is I'm having with the Dolphins is we like to stack, and that's a tough stack to do, especially in an 18 roster spot format like Underdog is it worth taking Fitzpatrick and Tua? Because I feel like that's kind of what you have to do if you want to stack.
That's the problem I've had, because I actually would like to stack the Dolphins. I think Devontae is going a little higher than I would like to take him, but that's okay if I really wanted to stack the Dolphins. But yeah, I mean, I think Fitzpatrick plays most of the year, but if they're losing, there's no reason to keep running him out there. Is Tua healthy? There's just a lot of uncertainty, and there are other good stacks outside of them that I just don't end up getting any of them.
Yeah, and I'll do it a little bit, especially if Parker drops, and he will drop in drafts. Like I've seen that happen. All right, I'm gonna go out of the Eric Bimefor playbook here and just completely overdraft Steven Sims to go with my Terry McLaurin pick.
That was funny yesterday. Your tweet was good. I have stacked the Washington football team more probably than anybody in this thing, and that was the first time I've ever got sniped for Sims actually, and McLaurin of course, but Haskins, that was a first. Somebody sniping me for Dwayne Haskins in like the 15th round yesterday was wild.
Well, let me ask you this: is there any concern that he's not the guy, or you just and I'm because I'm especially like Alex Smith reports of him like legitimately coming back, and what an amazing story that would be if he came back
right.
and had a role. I'm on the clock here real quick. Let me make a pick, and we're around 14 here. God, I hate Paris Campbell. I don't want to take him.
Why do you hate Paris Campbell?
All right, I'll take him then. Because I think Michael Pittman Jr. is better wide receiver, but
well, that's fair.
That's a different story. So is there like what level of concern do you have that it's not Haskins here, especially with like new coaching staff coming in?
Definitely, yeah, and the new organization. I mean, it's a shit show in Washington. So definitely some concern, but he's going to get every opportunity. And if that's the thing, if he sucks, if he's really awful for the first 6 weeks, my Haskins teams were never probably going to win anything anyway. So, because if he's that bad, then McLaurin's probably not very good, and Sims certainly isn't very good if Haskins is that bad. But I think he could. There's some reports, typical offseason fluff, but there's Cole Beasley. Who's taking Cole Beasley?
That was Head Chopper completely just owning you on this draft right here with a Cole Beasley pick.
Unbelievable. That's funny.
Cole Beasley.
Man, that hurts.
Did you have him queued up?
Yeah, I had him queued up, so now I'm way reaching because I'm.
Hey. The fluff is saying McKinnon's is looking great. So there you go.
Yeah. So back to the Washington thing. They're saying that Haskins looks a lot better. He was kind of pudgy and everything, and he's gotten in shape and working out with the guys and all that. So I'm willing to dabble in these crappy cheap stacks like that. Oh boy, this is gross.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've preached a lot of stacks, but I don't have a lot of stacks going just because of the way that this draft has kind of has worked its way out. But as I roll closer here, this is my opportunity to potentially go that route. So we'll see what's available out there. Let's see. I mean, I've got some of my receivers. I mean, I'm almost. So where do you fall on 3 quarterbacks, three tight ends?
It's a good question. So I think it's a little bit dependent on how your draft goes. I think you and I talked about this a little bit last year, where you were a lot heavier on 3 quarterbacks than I was. And the more I've thought about it, I do think it makes a lot of sense. But like you took Lamar and I took 2 like premium quarterbacks. I definitely wouldn't do it in those cases. But if you start with like, I don't know, which this happens to me sometimes, you start with like Jimmy G or something like that, then, I'm taking Jimmy G and Teddy and Haskins or something. I think it's smart to do that. But that's the only time I'm taking 3.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good time to do it. Like, again, if you punt on the position, I mean, even look at where we are now. The 15th round, Goff, Cousins, Rivers, Darnold, Haskins, Bridgewater. I mean, you can easily just get 3 of these guys in a row. Oh, yeah. And are you that bad off? I don't think so. Especially if you're pairing them up with guys that you've already drafted. I really want to take I think Jared Goff is the right pick here, but I'm a man of my stacking ways here. So okay, good. We don't have Bud. I'm going to take Sam Darnold. I was trying to get Herndon to go with Breeshad, and somebody took Herndon on me, so I didn't get him as my backup. But I don't know. I tried the Darnold experiment last year. It didn't help when the season started that he missed the first 6 games for mono or whatnot. So he's still only 22 maybe. Like
I don't think he's bad. Yeah. I tried last year. Remember draft last year when they did the mid-season ones?
Mm-hmm.
The mid-season. Oh man, I wasted so much money on Sam Darnold and the Jets on that because Darnold was they had the super easy schedule and he was going in the 15th round and I just donated $25.
All right. Who do you like better on a stack, Mims or Boykin? You got 5 seconds.
Ooh. Boykin.
Okay. I'm with you. That's where I was leaning anyway. Just to get something there with my Lamar stack. And I had a lot of him last year. He scored 3 touchdowns. Didn't really do all that much, but again, second-year wide receiver. This is the year they're supposed to take the lead. They didn't. There's some talk they might get Antonio Brown, but I'll believe it when I see it. So. And
he's out for 8 weeks or whatever.
Yeah, 8 weeks. He's still on the board out there. It's definitely falling into the range where I think you could take a shot on Antonio Brown.
He was going way too high for a while.
Yeah.
But now I think at the end, like you said, these guys are all dart throws, and if he does do something in the in playoff time, it's worth it.
Yeah, all the way. All right. So 5 running backs is the number I've got today. I'm okay with it. I should probably add one more just based on 3 of my 5 have the same bye week. It's not something I'm not a bye week slave by any measure, but I do think not paying attention to it can easily cause, especially with the way this kind of works. It's still total points. It's not like you're winning a week. So people will say, "Oh, it's 1 week. Who cares?" Well, you one total dog shit week can totally just crush you on the standings. This isn't season long where you play head to head and you say, "Okay, I'm gonna have 1 week where all my guys are on bye and I probably lose." But guess what? The other weeks I'm loaded up. This is basketball. It doesn't work that way. It's total amount of points you have through that 13 weeks. So I think it's important to keep your eye on that.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think you can see both sides. Okay, it's 1 week, and as long as you're not drawing a 0.
But you could be with injuries so easily.
That's true. Especially injuries and COVID. I mean, there's so much uncertainty this year.
Yeah. I mean that's the strategy that I kind of love in building these teams is trying to, it's sometimes even figure it out on the fly too, because no 2 builds you ever do are going to be the same, which I absolutely love. It's kind of the daily fantasy thing where every day is different, but every draft you go into is going to take a turn one way or another. And it's just what theme do you want to build within that team? And I think that's just a lot of fun here.
I agree.
So, all right, we're probably going to get through this draft for the entire show. That's great. That's what happens when you start on time. Again, be on the lookout again for another one of these coming up, I believe, tomorrow. And throwing again some swag. Tomato, you're the dude who gets the shirt. So hit me up on the old Twitter machine if you're watching this, and we will take care of you. Why no team have a bye week on week 12, but some have on week 13? Good question.
Good question. Call Roger.
Call Roger. But this runs through week 13, right? The regular season, I believe. So all bye weeks should fall within that. That side of things,
which is nice. Last year it was the first round had buys, didn't it? Last year?
I don't believe so. No, I don't. I think it was the mid-season ones that they ran.
Oh yeah,
remember?
Yeah.
The full season ones did not, but the mid-season ones, which I'm sure Underdog is going to do, and those were a lot of fun because you had to weigh the value of having a guy with their bye week already pass versus somebody whose bye week is going to fall into the playing period here. All right, last pick.
See it.
I need another tight end. Bad, jeez, because I only got one. Let's see. All right, you just snickered because you didn't seem to like what's left here. I'm gonna roll Tyler Eifert here. He's a starter. Played with the offensive coordinator out there in Cincinnati. I don't know. You can do worse than him.
And you're
there. You go. That's my squad. And also Joshua Kelly, I do not mind in a round 17 flyer. There's a definite chance that Eckler's going to be the guy, but somebody else is going to run the ball. Justin Jackson's been there for a while. Kelly was we've seen rookies kind of jump out of there, so I don't mind that one. So real quick, when we go through this, I'm gonna go through our teams, and I want to hear your least favorite pick from your squad, and then I'll give my least favorite pick from my squad. Antonio Brown, there you go, head chopper. Got him this third to last pick. That's about the latest I think I've ever seen him gone. I don't know if you had him queued up there, Eric, but
I did not. Oh man, this sucks.
Chopper's team here, not bad. He's the jerk who took Chris Herndon for me. Thanks a lot, Chop. Appreciate that, man.
Took both our guys.
Do you have a best ball team anyone can join? This league is filled. We're wrapping up the show. But, again, when we do this, the next one, be on the lookout on Twitter. We'll publicize when we're going to do it. Try and jump in the draft with us. And I'm doing these things 2 or 3 a day. And they're a lot of fun. All right, let's go through your squad real quick and then mine, and then we'll get on out of here. And, again, thanks again to Underdog. And if you have not tried them out, be sure to do it. Okay, Wilson, Allen, Barkley, Breida, Tevin Coleman, DeAndre Washington, Jerick McKinnon, Bryce Love, Lynn Bowden, and then wide receiver Schuster, Robinson, Lockett, Diggs, Brown, Preston Williams, Jalen Hurd, and Evan Ingram, Greg Olsen. So any mistakes in there? Anywhere that you're like, I really didn't need to pick that guy?
Well, it never feels good to click Greg Olsen.
But you had a reason for it, at least,
Yeah. But, you're faster than he is, DB, so that doesn't feel good. I think – so, I'm so much into kind of the zero RB-ish build. That's a lot of my builds. But when I get like a Saquon or a CMC or something, I think instead of like Breida and Tevin in that, as my 2, 3, whatever, it should probably be taking more of the like super boom bust guys that kind of require an injury or something fluky that, Tony Pollard. You took Latavius. I really wanted Latavius, but the guys who like Breida's more so, in my opinion, going to be like, getting you, he has a role regardless, but he's probably never going to be, a top 10 running back. Kind of the same with Tevin. So I think when you take Saquon and you build like I did, you should be taking like Latavius and Pollard and Madison and Edmonds instead of those guys. So that was probably a mistake.
Yeah, I don't know what was on the board when Diggs was there, but that would have been a spot I might have taken a running back that was a little bit higher up for you if possible. But you salvaged it with Josh Allen. All right, we'll go to my team real quick. And, man, mistakes, they're probably all over the place here. The one that man. I didn't end up stacking Washington. I guess that's probably my mistake. Mm-hmm. Is I didn't take Haskins there instead of Darnold. That was, I don't know why I suddenly got in this Darnold fix because of freaking Rashad Perriman.
Yeah.
But I did when I clearly could have taken Haskins, and then I had Sims and McLaurin already, and I kind of just had the old Galaxy brain there. So that's kind of what happened there. So that's probably the mistake I had. The only thing, let me see. Give me a silver lining here. By week 8. There we go. See? Lamar and Haskins have the same bye week, so I would have had to draft a third quarterback anyway. So that's my justification. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here today on this Underdog Fantasy Best Ball Show. We've got our Best Ball Hot Take Show that's coming up. That's going to be on the football feed. If you don't have that, download that. Get that on the podcast stream because our NFL content is going to be rolling out. It's going to be incredible as always this season, and you're going to want that podcast feed because you get new content fresh every single day for you, and we're doing things like this Best Ball. It's going to be on that feed right before the DFS season kicks off. Eric, thanks for jumping on with me. It was a lot of fun today, and look for more of these right here on RotoGrinders. Check out Underdog Fantasy, a whole lot of fun. Until next time, I'm Dan Bach. Good luck and see you, everybody.